Welcome to the last pour, where I share the last pour of a few different bottles of whiskey with you. Let's get into them. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today here on Blind Whiskey Reviews. Although this is one of our non-blind segments, which we've been doing quite a bit of lately, but don't worry, the blind reviews are going to be coming in hot and heavy very soon. I have stacked up enough blind samples to last us for quite a while, and we'll be getting back into those very soon. But today, I bring you back to a segment that I have not done in quite a while, so I'm excited to bring this one back. It is the last pour, where I share the last pour of these bottles with you guys and give you my thoughts on the whiskeys from the top to the bottom. So, all these whiskeys have been reviewed on the channel before. I will link that up here so you can check out those reviews if you'd like. And let's get into our very first whiskey. All right, so let's get started with the 1792 Full Proof. Now, this whiskey won some awards in the past year for being on someone's list for the best whiskey of the year. Now, do I think it is that? I don't know. I don't think the standard release of the 1792 Full Proof is all that amazing. Now, however, this was a single barrel store pick version of the 1792 Full Proof, and my experience with those has been fantastic. They are far superior to the regular 1792 Full Proof releases, which I find to be a little bit harsh and hot. So, for me, these are way better than those Full Proof picks, and they're the same price. So, let's pour this whiskey. It's a nice hefty final pour. But yeah, my experience with this bottle was pretty good. So I opened this up quite a while ago. The beginning of the bottle was a little bit harsh, I think. As we got further down the bottle, I got a little bit of airtime on it. It ended up being much more rich, much more full-bodied and fantastic. Like I said, the standard release of the 1792 Full Proof can be a little bit hot. It comes off hot and harsh. But some of these single barrel store picks are just the polar opposite of that. They just kind of feel like they've got more age on them. They've got more deep, dark characters. They're more complex, and they just don't have that heat to them. So let's get to the final pour and see how it's tasting. Yeah, that's really good. Just lots of nice complexity, deep, dark characters. You can definitely tell it's a 1792 product. It just kind of has that vibe to it. But it's got its own twist. It's just got more power and more punch. And it's a fantastic pour. And when you can get these bottles for in the $40 to $50 range. I picked this one up for, I think, 35 bucks. I mean, that was a random pick. I mean, normally you can get it in the 40 to 50 bucks range, but for 35 bucks, this was an absolute steal, and it is still tasting fantastic. So for me, this one gets a thumbs up. Would I buy another 1792 Full Proof store pick again? 100%, absolutely. I already have another couple of them. Not this particular one, but I picked up a couple along the way since I did this review, which was quite a while ago. The bottle's been open for quite a while. So would I do it again? Absolutely. All right, so our next whiskey we're going to be dusting off today is the Booker's. This is the 2017-03. This is an older release. I reviewed this bottle forever ago. I mean, this is a really old, this had to be in one of my first, I feel like it's probably in my first 20 reviews or something that I did. So this is an old bottle for sure. It took me a while to get through it. And part of the reason is, as I recall, the last few pours I had of this were just really difficult to get through. It got a little astringent and alcoholic, or, the ethanol really came forward on this one. I enjoyed the first half of this bottle a lot. And after that, it just got a little bit more difficult to drink. So right now it's smelling pretty good. I don't smell a lot of those alcohol notes on it, but as I recall, and again, it's been quite a while since I had a pour of this whiskey. The last pour I had of this was just, like I said, a little bit bitey, a little bit harsh, and a little bit alcoholic. So I'm going to take a taste here, and we're just going to see how it's tasting. However, I would say, in my opinion, having had Booker's on several different bottles of Booker's, the first half to 2/3 of the bottle is probably the best. The last bit, I wouldn't linger too long after you get maybe toward the halfway point on the bottle. I think they get a little bit harsh and a little bit bitey after that, but let's see how this pour is tasting. It smells good. It still tastes, I mean, don't get me wrong. When I say it gets a little harsh and bitey, I'm not saying that it's bad. What I am saying is that it is not as good as it was in this range. So I think this portion of the bottle is the best. If you get through a little bit quicker, it probably stays good the entire time. Don't get me wrong, it still stays fantastic. It's got some nice flavors, some nice characters. It's definitely Jim Beam all the way, high proof. I would say I'm not tasting the alcohol notes as strongly as I recall them, but I don't think that this whiskey tastes as good as it did at the earlier portions of the bottle. So would I buy another bottle of Booker's? For sure. I already did. I got a couple of them sitting over there. So I would definitely buy more Booker's. Booker's is a great pour. It's a great deal if you can get it for a reasonable price. I can still get Booker's, I think, for about $60 a bottle. Some places are in the 70 to 80, and for me, 60 is about my limit for Booker's. Not too long ago, I could still get them for 50, so I'm a little bit disappointed that it went up to 60, but hey, gotta get with the times. Would I pay 60 for a batch that I heard was good? For sure I would, but that would probably be my limit for Booker's. But would I buy another one? Absolutely. All right, for the last whiskey today, we are doing Eagle Rare. Now, this whiskey is a bit controversial, and I'm not quite sure why. This is kind of a love it or hate it whiskey. There is a lot of people out there that really enjoy Eagle Rare, and there's a lot of people out there that really hate Eagle Rare. I think I'm kind of in the minority in the fact that I do enjoy Eagle Rare. It's not necessarily my favorite whiskey, but I think it's a good value. You're getting a 90 proof whiskey that has a 10-year age statement on it from a well-known distillery in Buffalo Trace. So I don't see how you can hate on it, but maybe it's not your favorite. So let's get this whiskey into the glass here. Now, Eagle Rare is allegedly still a single barrel product, although it doesn't say it on the bottle. Supposedly, and I've said this in the review, so if you haven't checked the review out, definitely go up here and check it out along with the Booker's and the 1792. But allegedly, they still produce this whiskey in single barrels and bottle it as a single barrel product, but the way that they bottle it allows a little bit of whiskey from the previous batch to get into some of the, at least the first bottle or some of the bottling line, so that way they don't technically want to call it a single barrel. That's the rumor. Don't know if it's true. I can kind of imagine it's true to some extent because I do feel like I get a decent amount of variation between Eagle Rare bottles that I've had. Some of them are really good, some of them are mediocre, so I think that there's a possibility that sounds like a reasonable thing. But for me, this bottle was really good. The first bit of it down to here stayed really fruity. Once we got down to like the lower third, it maybe got slightly less fruity, maybe a little bit more of those oaky notes kind of picked up a little bit, but either way, it was never bad at any point. I didn't like it any less. It was just different. So let's get to the last pour on this and see how it is. So yeah, I would say at this point, a lot of the fruit has died down, which for me is something I really like about Buffalo Trace products. I really like that kind of red, juicy apple bite you get to a lot of their whiskeys. This one really had that in the first 2/3 of the bottle. That's definitely died off a little bit. It tastes slightly oxidized to me now, so this may be a whiskey you don't want to let sit for too long of a period of time open. This bottle's been open for quite a while, so maybe you want to keep the bottle open in the 6-month range is a good mark to maybe finish this bottle in. Keep a lot of those good fruity notes in there. The oxidation seems to take those out a little bit. So for me, the first half to 2/3 of the bottle is really good if you can go through it in a reasonable amount of time. If you're going to sit on a bottle, this is maybe not one of the ones you want to sit on, because for me, lower proof whiskeys, and let's just make lower proof being whiskeys under 100 proof, you don't want to leave in the bottle for really long periods of time if they've got a lot of oxygen in the bottle with them. They just tend not to do as well as some of the higher proof whiskey. Maybe it has to do with some of the alcohol in the whiskey evaporating and taking up some of that airspace and protecting the whiskey. At a lower proof whiskey that's 90 proof, maybe you just don't get that protection. These are guesses on my part, but in my experience, higher proof whiskeys do better being open for longer periods of time. So definitely if you have one of these bottles, it's a great whiskey. Don't sit on it for too long. Like I said, 6 months is probably a good period of time to make sure you get through that bottle. Would I buy another bottle of Eagle Rare? I mean, I definitely would, and I definitely have. I have a couple like other single barrel store picks of this whiskey. It's not a whiskey I reach out to just as being someone who drinks a lot of different whiskeys. It's not one that I gravitate towards just because, is it solid? Is it good? It absolutely is. Is it a good value? I think so, at a $30 price point. The price has been going up a little bit, which is a little bit off-putting. I think $30 is a good price point for this. But for me, it's not all that much more interesting than any of the other Buffalo Trace releases necessarily. So it's not something that I gravitate towards, but I have no problem with drinking it or picking up another bottle if I felt the need to. But for me, it's kind of in that, would I buy it, would I not? It's right in the middle. Like, I have nothing against it. I would buy another bottle perhaps. It's just not something that grabs me and makes me say, I gotta have another one. But it is a very solid, good, drinkable whiskey, and definitely one I think you should try if you haven't already. Alright, so those are my thoughts on these 3 bottles. They are all great pours. To be honest, I'd have no problem buying each of these again. I would really definitely buy these 2. This one's a maybe, just depending. Like I said, there's nothing extraordinarily special about it, but is it a great whiskey? No, it's a good whiskey. A very good whiskey. But it's not anything that's going to knock your socks off, blow your mind. It's just a solid, drinkable pour. So, anyways, let me know what you think of any of the 3 of these whiskeys. Which one's your favorite? Which one would you buy again? Which one would you not? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. As always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at blind_reviews. You can also catch me on Instagram at missionbottlekill, and you can send me an email at blindwhiskeyreviews, that's whiskey with an E, @gmail.com. And until next time, cheers.